Hello, this is Tom for Tabletop Taproom and the Star Frontiers Gamer. We've got another Star Frontiers video. You probably figured that out by the background um, overlay that I put in there. And this is part two of our creative equipment for the Star Frontiers game. Inspired by a collaboration between Eric Tenkar, Joe the Lawyer, and Greyheart Grognard, where they were looking at equipment items from the equipment list in BX and AD&D and how these things can actually save your characters. As Eric said, you're at first level, you are one bad die roll away from death. And that's not necessarily true in Star Frontiers, but certainly creative equipment use that keeps your character alive, helps them bypass danger, is always a good thing in an old school RPG, including Star Frontiers. This is part two. The previous video will be linked at the end of this video. And so let's get to it. So first off, I just want to say thanks for watching the video, and don't forget that like, subscribe, and bell icon. And moving right along with part two to the creative equipment for Star Frontiers. Now I finally found my notes on the flashlight. I had misplaced them. So let's talk about MacGyvered uses for the flashlight. Number one is optical signaling, particularly at night. Or in an environment where there's a lot of noise and high interference, you'd be able to flash codes for signaling to other compatriots over a distance. And this could be very simple codes for all clear, danger, or rendezvous. You can use it as an improvised strobe for disorientation in close quarters combat, particularly in dark corridors or ruins. Rapidly toggling the light in the eyes of a low light adapted creature or an unsuspecting guard can cause some momentary blindness and hesitation, giving you an opening to act. The shadow puppetry. You place the flashlight on the ground, set something up in front of it, a backpack or a piece of armor, and the resulting giant and or moving shadows on the wall can make it look like a larger group or a more dangerous entity is moving toward a hallway, thus diverting guards or causing them to hesitate. Reflective inspection. Inside the head of a flashlight is this reflective cone. It is effectively a mirror, but it's in cone shape. But you could use that to peek around a corner without putting your face around the corner and see if there was something moving in the corridor. You can use it for a magic trick and negotiation tool, particularly in a cultural environment that relies on primitive technology or superstition. Being able to produce a sudden powerful beam of light from a small device can be used to intimidate or impress or distract individuals who are unfamiliar with a modern portable electronic type technology base. You could use it with a flexible tube to be a fiber optic scope, attaching a flexible tube or a piece of hose to the front of the light. You'd be able to insert it into a small crevice piece of machinery to be able to pinpoint the light in there and be able to inspect what's going on. That could be of aid as a targeting aid. If the light was failing and you were being forced to fight in low light and you needed a flashlight, and I did do this to a group of player characters once. They were exploring a downed ship in the desert, but once you got down into the engine room, it was dark in there. And there were burrower snakes on Volturnus, which strike and then retreat. And so they had to use their flashlights to be able to see the snake and then try to shoot at it. But you could grab the ion bonding tape from the technician's toolkit. You could attach a flashlight to the end of a weapon and use it as a tactical light in that sort of situation. Battery cannibalization. If another piece of critical gear, maybe a motion sensor, communication device, a computer, suddenly died, its power supply died, you could cannibalize the batteries from the power source from a flashlight to get just enough power to be able to send a final distress signal or retrieve a critical piece of data out of that computer. And so that is something that could be possible. And then finally, as an emergency candle, if you were in a room and there was a lot of smoke or debris in the air, you could actually set the candle on a table, shining the light up, and hitting all of the particles in the air would cause the light to be diffused. And so it more or less illuminate the whole room. Alternately, if you had like a reflective piece of material, the all-weather blanket maybe, a piece of glass, you put the flashlight upside down on that, and and maybe if you had a couple of pencils or thin rods, you could put them down, and it would allow a little more light to escape. But that diffused lighting would diffuse throughout the room and illuminate the whole room, and you wouldn't get the harsh shadows from just pointing a flashlight in one direction. So those would be the uses of a flashlight. I want to jump my other notes here for gas mask. Creative uses for a gas mask. The portable atmospheric lab sampling. You could use the intake valve on a gas mask and attach it to pull in samples of gas through a vacuum pump, and then use the that would be a portable sampler that you could bring into a lab. That would be a possibility. You could just in a sandstorm, you need something to protect your eyes. You need to keep the sand out of your lungs, the debris out of your lungs. So just put the gas mask on. It's got a high impact face shield, and that would certainly be a great use of it. There's potential, depending on how good the seals on it are, for a submerged vision shield. You'd have to hold your breath, because if you were sucking in air, you're going to put water into the gas mask. But you could use it, not for diving, but like if you were walking around in water, putting your face down to try to find something that was lost in water that was chest deep. Certainly that would be a great use of it. As a smell neutralizer, if you were in an area where there was a lot of decay, toxic spills, nauseating alien waste, and there was going to be a negative dice modifier, -10 for all your activity because of the smell, we'll use the gas mask. That's gonna solve that problem for you. The filter cartridge as an air scrubber. If you were setting up an impromptu lab in a tent or in a compartment in a spaceship, you could use the filter cartridges as an air scrubber for that lab to keep smoke or chemicals, or just to contain maybe a biological agent within an area. And so you would have that air scrubber that would be scrubbing out the harmful effects. And then just the gas mask kind of resembles the head of a sapient being. So you would be able to use it as a decoy of you putting together a mannequin and put it on. And in low light, it would work as a decoy. It could draw fire. It could draw curiosity and give you a chance to do something before the enemy reacts to you. Give you a chance maybe to surprise the enemy. And finally, I used a gas mask in an adventure I set up where it was a poisonous atmosphere. Not poisonous, but it was unbreathable because of the high CO2. And the surviving castaway on this planet happened to also be the ship's botanist. And so he cannibalized the hydroponic section and had a big vat that he built an improvised backpack frame that he put this vat on, and it kept the algae in there producing oxygen. And he sealed off the top and had a hose that he attached directly to his gas mask, and he'd wear the gas mask. And so he had it set up so that he could breathe in oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide to the algae in the tank. And because it was a lower gravity world, it was a substantial tank he was carrying on his back full of algae. And so this allowed him to survive for years on this planet with this artificial respirator, where he was using the gas mask fitted to his face and hoses attached to it and attached to the tank. And so that was an improvised thing I, as the game master, worked up and created in that adventure to explain why this survivor had survived for years, decades really, on this planet where the atmosphere was absolutely unbreathable. And and then there were clues that player characters found before they found the survivor. And so they found they went into a cave and they found the vat of algae. So there are a number of creative things that you could do with the gas mask. And I'm particularly proud of the algae producing oxygen, wearing the vat, particularly in a low gravity environment. Now we're getting to a really interesting piece of equipment on the equipment list, and that is the Holo Flare. And before I speculate on what you could use it for, I think we need to read the equipment, because it's futuristic. It doesn't actually exist in the real world, but the Holo Flare is a small, solid ball-shaped device. When lit, the flare rockets about 200 meters into the air and hovers there for 10 minutes. The flare will illuminate an area 1 kilometer across with a dim light. Now, this is, I love this item. When you see the word device, you think, oh, it's electronic based, but then you see that it's lit and it rockets into the air. So, depending on the game master, some game masters might rule it's an electronic device, and some might rule that it's there's a propellant. And so if it does have the propellant, and I would tend to lean that way because of lit and rockets, there's a propellant that you can cannibalize out of it for some other purpose, any purpose that you might use gunpowder or propellant or anything. Yeah. So certainly the possibility there for that. Now, one of the uses non-standard uses I would use it for, would be if you could contrive a way to light it off inside an enemy vehicle. So it goes off, it hits the roof, there's flame, there's propellant spewing everywhere, it's bouncing off of the roof, the walls, the windows, and then it's this blind, because it's enough light to illuminate a kilometer diameter area. So in an air vehicle, this could be a bad thing. Inside of an air car, you would could rule that everybody's got to save or be blinded, type of thing. So yeah, this could be a bad thing to happen. Maybe you light it off in a air vehicle or even a truck, when you're being taken prisoner, and you're hoping that this creates an opportunity for your character to escape from the captors, because it's coming, because you're the one lighting it off. So that would be a possibility. That you could use it for signaling by launching one or two, by saying, all right, I'm going to launch two hollow flares in quick succession. And that means, meet me at the rendezvous point. Using it in combat. If you had low light adapted creatures or guards and you launched it off, it's going to draw attention and it's going to create curiosity. And so guards and creatures are going to naturally gravitate towards that area. And that could give you an opportunity to move towards your real target. Launching it, in a cavern, if you had combat going on in this cavern, could help create a distraction, cause a low light adapted creature to be surprised, maybe even stunned. So it certainly has an opportunity in that way. And then finally, I came across this one idea that you could launch a flare and then study, there's a complex you wish to infiltrate. You launch the flare, and then you, through your magna goggles, you study the shadows of the complex, and that could help you identify walkways, doorways, entrances on roofs, based on how the shadows are falling from the flare. I've never heard of that before, but okay, maybe. So that would also be a possibility with the flare. And then another thing, because it's going to rocket 200 meters into the air, it could be used as a weather diagnostic, telling you what condition is going on with the winds 200 meters in the air. Is it safe for a shuttle to try to come in here and land? Is it safe for you to take off in a jet copter? That sort of thing. And then finally, you could use it as for psychological warfare or as a religious sign. In a campaign where you're dealing with primitives and superstitious or culturally unique alien civilizations, this star that shoots up into the sky and then illuminates an area for 10 minutes could be a devastating psychological weapon. You could make the primitives believe you're divine or technologically superior. There's a lot of possibilities there. Then the life jacket. Now, I looked at the life jacket and I thought, wow, 1 kilogram of weight for Star Frontier's life jacket. And then I went to the internet and how much does a life jacket weigh in kilograms? And it was 0.3 to 1.5. So we'll just go with, 1 for a non-inflatable life jacket. An inflatable life jacket would be on that 0.3 kilogram end. But this would be talking about a non-inflatable life jacket. So, all right, we can go with the 1 kilogram. And I would also say that we should just go ahead and include same price for NA, non-applicable weight, because Star Frontiers doesn't like to track fractional, mass in equipment items. So, there'd be no weight, same price, an inflatable life jacket, which would have a CO2 canister. And I think that would also, because, with an inflatable life jacket, there'd be things you could do with that. It's got a CO2 canister. That CO2 canister makes noise when it's suddenly filling the life jacket, fills it within seconds. So if you buried the life jacket in some loose leaves and debris and put a tripwire across a trail and it was tripped, suddenly you've got noise. Suddenly you've got movement because the jacket's inflating and moving the leaves and debris. And that pulls attention that way while you're over here behind, for an ambush. And that's going to give you a good 1 to 2 turns of combat to take out an enemy before it can even respond. And I'm all for taking out an enemy before it can respond. So the inflatable life jacket, I think, would be a good idea, especially since, it wouldn't have any weight. So it's not going to go against your encumbrance. That would definitely be a good idea. But with the non-inflatable life jacket that is in Star Frontiers, I would say if you had a number of these, you could lash them together with a plank or board or some kind of framework and make an improvised raft, particularly if you really needed to keep equipment out of the water. This would be a handy way to do it. You could actually use the life jacket for shock impact padding. Wrap up a delicate or fragile device or item in and then maybe a couple wraps of ion bonding tape from the tech kit as well. That would actually be a very good use to just protect a fragile item you don't want broken while you're moving it. Uh, Most life jackets are in high visibility colors, so you could cut up a life jacket and strip off the outer material and use that for trail markers or to mark for high visibility marking of trails or a landing rendezvous spot. That would be handy. Thermal insulation. It's not really designed to keep you warm, but you could use it to underneath your bedding to prevent body heat loss to cold ground. That would certainly be a good use for it as well. Um, Buoyancy assist retrieval. If you had something in water and it was too heavy to actually move, you could strap a couple of life jackets onto it, and that buoyancy assisted retrieval, you might be able to then drag it to the shore, where it would otherwise be too heavy to lift from the bottom of a pond. You can also use if you're setting up a target decoy, scarecrow type thing. Um, Stuff the life jacket full of foliage and old gear and empty containers, and attach it to a frame to create a crude silhouette of a person. In low light, the dummy would be enough to draw fire or even curiosity, providing you a window to act. And then improvised knee pads and elbow pads. Nothing sucks more than crawling over rocks on your hands and knees. So yeah, I think this is an excellent use for a life jacket. And then, if it had external pockets, you can fill those with sand and use it as an emergency sandbag. Um, Drop it in front of an open door to hold the door open. Using it as a sandbag weight, tied to a rope, tied to a piece of shelter, holding a all-weather blanket in place. But effectively, basically an improvised doorstop if you turn it into an emergency sandbag. So I think we have fairly well exhausted, other than the water pack. The water pack, it's a 4-liter water pack. I've actually, in the Volturnus adventure, cut the top off of it, attached a wire bale, and we've used it as a bucket for watering the lopers that we befriended. There's a lot of things on the list we didn't handle. The Toxie rad gauge, it's a set of idiot lights, and it just lets you know if there's toxins or radiation in the air. It's your canary in the coal mine that the canary will sing, start chirping if there's poison gas present. I would not cannibalize this for any purpose other than, no, I want to know. Because that's just the thing. I want that. The only thing I don't like about it is that it starts flashing a light, and that might give away your position in a combat situation. So I would want my idiot box Toxie rad gauge to be modified to have a vibration signal, to not flash, to alert me some other way rather than draw attention like, oh, right there's somebody hiding, shoot them with the laser. But definitely wouldn't cannibalize that. The Polyvox, critical piece of equipment if you got to speak to somebody in an alien language, because it's your universal translator. Subspace radio weighs 100 kilograms, not something the player characters are lugging around. Your Parawing, it's basically a single-use parachute, hang glider parachute for the player characters. It doesn't weigh much, but it's kind of not something I think you would cannibalize. You certainly could. You've got infrared goggles and infrared jammer. I think those are items that you just got to use the way they're intended to be used. I, I I don't see that there would be creative uses for those. And rope. Oh, rope. Well, rope's got like 100 different uses, but rope's kind of been covered in other videos, so I think it's not an area I want to retread. But definitely, there's like 100 different things you would use rope for. You always want to have some rope on hand, and if not rope, at least some twine. Certainly. Now, so I think, yeah, we've pretty well exhausted the miscellaneous equipment list for creative uses for equipment. And I think the next video we do, the part 3, probably be on the tool kits, in particular the med kit, the technician's kit, and the Robcon kit. The environmental kit, not so much. It's just 3 scanners. So yeah, but I think we'll focus on the tech kits and the medical kit and discuss those in the next video. This is Tom for Tabletop Tap Room. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget that like, subscribe, bell icon, and I will see you out there at the gaming table, hopefully using some of your equipment creatively.